And this is your end of day market recap for Wednesday, September 14th. Well, where do we start with today? A little bit of volatility crept into the market, but the VIX was up about 3% middle of the day and actually finished down 2.4% for the day. So this continues to be, for now, a bend but don't break market. For the day, the S&P did finish down, but we're talking about 1/3%. The Qs came back nicely in the last 15 minutes. There was another big MOC imbalance. I think it was about 2.5, $2.6 billion. So Qs only finished down 1/3%. Small caps did not come back at the end of the day. They lagged a bit. They were down 9/10 of a percentage point. You could see microcaps actually fell pretty decently for the day from open to close. They did finish down 7/10 of a percentage point. Bitcoin, interesting. There's a lot of just odd moves today. We've seen Bitcoin basically go down over the last week and a half, and today the market was began to kind of take a leg lower, and meanwhile Bitcoin was going up today. Um, Remember, relationships don't always have to add up and don't need to be perfect. Normally, and the relationship that I'm referring to is normally when you see cryptos move up and trend up and have momentum to the upside, it's usually a risk on feel for the market. Now, it hasn't been that way over the last week and a half. Cryptos have been pretty weak, and the market has continued to go continue to grind higher. Today, Bitcoin woke up a little bit, as well as a couple of the other cryptos, and actually gained a little bit. But I will go over that chart in just a minute. But just interesting to see that phenomenon. Gold down 9/10 of a percentage point. I'll tell you, gold has been really interesting because it's been acting more as a momentum trade than it has been like as a flight to safety. Gold has been going up with the market. Market goes down today, and gold goes down today. Again, just one of those things where I think we just have a very interesting market on our hands. You could see there was a lot more areas, particularly like the gold and the silver miners were to the downside. Uranium stocks took a big breather today. They were down 3.5%. One of your market leaders as well, XME. I know that's probably off the radar of some traders, but XME has been one of your best performing groups out there. That was also down 1.1% today. So let's go into a couple of things that I thought were continue to be. I've used the word interesting a lot, but I can't help it with this market. Let me show you. Let me just bring up the midday note that I send out. And again, you could sign up for that. There's a link that's scrolling on the bottom of the screen. Substack TTG trading.substack.com. Make sure that you sign up for this. It is free. If you want to see positions and trade ideas, you have to pay $20 a month. So very, very, very cheap in my opinion. But here's what I'm referring to, and you could see this every day for free. But to me, is more about market rotation than market sell off. More S&P new highs today than new lows. There were 62 new. This again, I took the snapshot middle of the day, so it may have adjusted a little bit. But there were 62 new highs today, and the S&P 4-week new highs, and only 50. Well, still a decent amount of new lows. But to me, when you have more new highs versus new lows, it just tells me that there's a decent amount of rotation on the tape. And certainly energy outperformed for a second day. I spent some time and talked about that yesterday. Couple other things too was just if you look at the Mag 7 names today too, like they took a breather. They actually was part of what I was saying in the trading room yesterday, that yesterday didn't look like it was a Mag 7 day. Yes, today neither was today. It was not a Mag 7 name. All of these names finished down for the day, except for Tesla, and I'm going to cover Tesla in just a second. But there were a couple things today to note. Also, just the amount of names, momentum names that were down. I got a lot of, sorry, I know this looks kind of tiny on the screen, but, and I'll bring this up here so that you could see this. So let me just share screen again, replace the screen. All right. So if you look at the names that were down today, and I got a lot of good feedback about this from yesterday's video. Thank you for that feedback, by the way. But I was talking about If the market goes down a 0.5% or 1%, what will some of these momentum names do? And they were actually down more than that example that I gave about adjusting for beta. Some of these momentum names, the beta is well over 2%, meaning that they move twice as fast as the overall market. Well, look at what happened today. BE was down, actually finished off the lows a little bit, and I'm going to review that chart as well, but down 10%. ALAB, another highly loved momentum name, down 11%. LEU, Oklo, right? I didn't hear anybody but talking about Oklo today, down 8%. And by the way, if you're talking about these names as they go up, right, there's no excuse to not be trading, to talking about them and what your thought is when they go down, right? You can't just be cheerleading for the stocks as they go up, as they've been. A lot of these names like BE has been getting price target raise after price target raise, good analyst notes, and that's great. But you also, like, you can't just say, oh geez, they're down today, so I'm not going to mention them, right? If you're going to mention them while they're going up, you got to mention them when they're going down, because going down might actually be a better buying opportunity, right? So in any event, let's review some charts, and I'm going to go over the indices first. We have not been below the 5-day moving average here for the better part of, well, basically since the beginning of the month, right? And I have talked about this in a few of these videos, how we basically started August, we started September the same way that we started August. We got we got this selling pressure at the end of the month of July, started the month of August below the 20-day moving average, and then buyers stepped in. The exact same thing happened. I walked through many videos this month talking about, we started the same way and then we walked our way up. Right, we had a nice save here. This was back on the 17th, where we had some pressure to the downside and we closed back above the 5-day moving average. Why does this 5-day moving average mean so much, or why do I spend so much time on that? Well, it's just very good for monitoring the short-term trend and momentum. Right, when price is above here, the momentum and the trend is very strong. When you begin to kind of lose that, that means that the sellers are the sellers are pushing lower, and you're running out of momentum to the upside. Now, so that's the one thing that's kind of a no-no for the day, is losing the 5-day moving average. However, I do use multiple time frame analysis, and I had mentioned, and I actually put on a trade for this. When we look at the Qs, I put on an NDX trade that was a put spread that actually earned some nice money today, thinking that we could return back to the top of the value area at some point this week. We actually did it right when the put spread expired, so that worked well. And this is moved back to the top of the value area, just as I talked about. We closed here yesterday, right? So we actually breached this a little bit. Notice that we breached this last week too. This was the Fed day, right? A little bit of back and forth action, and we ended up closing above and staying above. Now, so the question for tomorrow is, will we be able to stay above this 661 level? I don't have the answer to that question. We could breach if the futures sell off tonight, that could breach that level. It's very close. And I think also that 5-day moving average is something to keep an eye on as well. But we also know that, again, like, I would be biased a little bit to the downside, because we're not through the end of September, which we know the last week or so of September is one of the weakest weeks of this year. So I'm not going to try. There's no reason for me to be a contrarian about that. It's just to take the information and process it and say, okay, that's good information to have, that the last week of the year is one of the weakest seasonal periods. Right, you get through that, right, and then October still probably will be a bumpy month, but overall, these things are good so that you're not surprised, so that you may, go ahead and put on, a hedge or two. And this way you could weather the storm of seeing a little bit of price action to the downside. So that's what I would be watching for tomorrow. Again, if we continue to kind of break down a little bit, I don't think it's the end of the world. The next support level I would be watching is this 200 period moving average. And then, of course, to the downside. And I think if we break this, I'll probably be looking to kind of play the short side in the short term, right? Just to make some of those adjustments. And again, I still have SPY puts on. I still have the What do I have on for SPY? I have on, I go over this in so many of these videos. I have on the October 3rd, 655, 650 put spread, which is marking like very close to where I bought that about a week ago. And I also have the 640, 647 puts on as well, just in case we get some more downside, and fast downside. I'm protected. The Qs, same thing. We went right into the 5 day, sorry, not 5 day moving average, but the top of the value area, and held that levels to watch is 595.30. Again, why are these so important? Because this value area was developed from last week's price action, just as the week before, and they just become very good support resistance levels to have, right? And that's something that we monitor, every week. And again, there's something to them, right? There's something to the last 2 weeks going down right to the top of the value area, and then we bounced. So we're doing the same thing for now, but it's the case of this is going to be a little bit of a battle between buyers and sellers, right? Here's also the daily chart for the Qs. It's kind of the same thing here. We're starting to break, and we did close below the 5 period moving average. IWM, and again, these are so damn similar right now. IWM did close back below the 5 day moving average. As I mentioned, it showed a little bit of relative weakness, and this also closed inside the value area for the week. Notice that that's lit up in pink because that has now triggered the bearish 80% rule, looking for a move all the way down to the bottom of the value area, which is about 2.1% down. Right, that is known as the bearish 80% rule. When you start, or when you are above the value area and then you enter it, right, there's an 80% chance that you can go from one side to the other. Same thing, of course, when you start below and you break inside the value area, there's an 80% chance so that you can go to the other side of the value area. I did not make that up. That's known as value area studies. You could use Grok or whatever AI, and you could ask about the 80% rule using value area studies if you're not familiar with the rule. But I would also say in between there's the 200 period moving average, and that sometimes acts as the trend, right? Notice like back in here, we came down into this and we held it. So that's another spot that you might see some support at as well. All right, so that's your analysis for the indices. I mentioned gold. I just want to kind of go over this chart because again, I just find this funny that gold is acting more as a momentum name than anything else. I sold my gold swing position yesterday. I thought this was extended. I did not go back into it today. I'm going to maybe give it one more day. Again, some of these things, including gold, they're just up a lot. Like I would rather like a check back to the 20-day moving average, but that's just me. This could stay above the 5 period moving average and continue to trend. And it's the same thing with GDX, right? GDX down to the 5 day moving average. It's been on one heck of a run. Had this huge green bar after the Fed day, and has kind of come in a little. Oh, sorry, this was on Friday. This was on Friday when this had this. But regardless, like that's something that I would be watching too. One other note, I forgot to mention this before I go to some of the single names that I want to go over. But Helene Meisler made this observation that notice that the volume in the queues is higher. Right? Normally, I know this is a confusing subject, but I'm going to mention it. Right? You for the indices, different than single stocks. So again, for the indices, right, you don't want to see high volume. High volume means distribution. Right? We can when we grind higher like this, we usually do it on low volume. This confuses the heck out of people. People think that you need high volume to go higher. That is absolutely false, right? For the most part, the indices trade low volume when they're going higher. And if you think about that intuitively, that's how institutions trade, right? They nibble, they pick their spots going on the long side. When they want to get out of stocks, they do it very quickly and they do it in big chunks, right? So that's why you see bigger volume on distribution days. Right. So it's actually a bit of a warning signal when you see high volume or where you see a change of volume in the tone. You don't want high volume if you're a market bull for the overall market. All right, let's get to some single stocks. So I mentioned, let's go over a couple ones that fell apart today. So BE, I mentioned that, yes. So I'm interested in the stock here. right? It did come into the 20-day moving average and it held. I think that this is a better spot. It's not as extended. Now look at the volume today, but it probably will need some time in my guesstimate here. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. But regardless, you could go long this now versus the 20-day moving average, right? That's a trade. Now, it did get a downgrade today, but I think the stock, got hit yesterday. But here's exactly what I was referring to about those beta moves, right? It's so important that you have the right position size because this could wipe out your whole month's gains for as fast as these names move. What about this name? I didn't hear anybody talking about this. People love this a couple weeks ago, right? This one, I think I would like to see it personally get back above the 20-day moving average. This is a little bit too deep of a pullback, but I'll be watching this. You could also trade this if you like, long term. If you've been dying to get into this name, you could trade this versus support of 189. Right. But again, if you're doing this game, right, if you're being a disciplined trader, then if it breaches support, you get out of it. Right. You don't just say, oh, I'm going to ignore that. CRDO, I actually tried going long this today. I'm going to talk about the strategy just for 1 second, right? This is all about being like pretty secure with what you're trading and understanding that you're gonna you're gonna try some trades, and sometimes they're not going to work. And I put on this trade earlier in the day versus that 20-day moving average. I was waiting for a little bit of a bounce here, and I got it. So I went in here. I got one target, I think. Oh, sorry, this is over here. Sorry about that. I waited for the first bar to get above the 5-day moving average. I bought this here, and I took a quick target at 154. Now, this proceeded to kind of break back down again, and I got out of the position before it broke, as it broke this 5-period moving average. And that's it. And then you kind of just go back and you reassess. Now, I didn't see any major buying going into this at the end of the day, but I would be watching this name because CRDO has been a name that I've made a lot of money in this year. And I would be watching to see what it does at the 20-day moving average. And again, maybe it has an inside day here. Regardless, you could go long versus this 20-day moving average. I want a little bit more room, so I'll be revisiting that tomorrow. Again, you don't have to figure out all these things in one day. That this whole week is going to have week until the second Jewish holiday is over, which I believe that is October 4th. Right? You don't have to be in a rush to be buying things on the dip. Right? You can nibble, like in my opinion. Again, I'm not telling you what to do, right? Because I don't give advice in these videos. But for me, like nibbling is okay going into some things, but you don't need to be a hero. The stock's down 8%, right? Look at the volume change in these stocks. Let these names kind of do what they're doing a little bit. All right. Um, I want to talk about a couple really impressive names too. IREN, oh, amazing, right? This name apparently wasn't in the rotation out of high growth names, up another 12% today. Right? Another name that's been super strong is the CIFR. The quantum names have been absolute beasts, but I think they're probably due for a little bit of a rest here. Um, IONQ did finish down on the day. RGTI, I believe they had bought some big calls a few days ago. I believe that they were taking profits in those calls today. I'll have to check open interest, but again, look at the volume on the day today. Stock did finish in the green, but I would be taking profits here. But again, I said that probably a couple days. This has just been an amazing move, and again, I would look to get involved in this, on a market dip at this point. I'm not going to go through all those names. I wanted to talk about Tesla. I thought Tesla was showing some relative strength. This was one that I nibbled on today. Right, I was long Tesla in here. I actually sold it. Um, at the end of the day on what's today, Wednesday. So this was Monday. It went down, and I got back involved in this today. A decent amount of call buying today in this one. Broadcom. I like this name. I like this pullback. This one also saw some more like leaps call buying, but I like this coming in, had strong earnings, right? Big gap up on earnings and a move down to the 20-day moving average, right? This is a good spot for me. Now, if it gets into this earnings gap, I know exactly where I want to be out of this one. And again, this was a nibble for me right at the end of the day. Right? And we'll see if it can get above the 5-day moving average tomorrow. Or in the future, but I'll be watching this versus the 20-day moving average. I also wanted to talk about Micron really quickly. Notice the stock was down today. They had great earnings. There's nothing bad about the earnings, but have to be monitor some of these things and understand that some of these names super overbought into earnings. It doesn't matter that they had good earnings. It's already priced into the stock, right? You should know that. You should be aware of that, right? Some folks don't understand this, and they think that every time that if the stock goes up, they think, or sorry, if they think the stock has good earnings, they think the stock is going to go up no matter what. It doesn't matter. That doesn't. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that doesn't matter, right? It matters where the stock has been. Right? If the stock is down and they have good earnings, sure, the stock's going to go up. But if the stock is way overbought and has run up, 50% going into the earnings, it may sell the news, right? Buy the rumor, sell the news. Again, just covering this because I know sometimes that gets a little bit lost from time to time. What else did I wanted to cover? Just a couple other names that are on my watch list. Rocket Labs, I was not impressed with the action today. I actually sold this in the beginning of the day, and then I kind of got back into it as it looked like it was holding some support, but not the best end of the day price action. I'd like to see it stay above 49 bucks. If it doesn't, I'll have to get out of this trade for now. But buying into the 50-day moving average has worked pretty well. It has not broken that. It also hasn't broken the top of the value area. So for now, I'm long this name, or remain long this name. Let's talk about the China names a bit. Just kind of interesting to me. I try not to insert my opinion too much into this stuff, but Alibaba was up huge today. Just the fact, I guess, that they're committing right, by the way, to the VPOC up there, um, which again, volume likes, price likes to seek out where there was a bunch of buyers and sellers previously that have not been revisited. That is a virgin point of control. It's called VPOC, and price again likes to seek out these exactly where there was that high volume over a given period. Hence, that's where a VPOC is formed, and hence that's where the stock went back to. But this is just pretty. I think it's a combination of things. For now, the market is still infatuated with AI spending, right? They're just announced that they're going to be committing more money to AI. They didn't actually really do anything, but it kind of just shows that this stock is still cheap to me. That's why it's goes up 8% on that kind of announcement. Just the fact that they're committing capital, take it for what it is. I'm still long a little bit of JD calls. I'm trying to hold on to that position. This is and I've already locked in good gains. I'm just holding the last piece. I'm in the January 37.5 calls. We'll see if it can. Get out of its get above its 200-day moving average. FUTU, right? This is a name. This was actually one of my favorite setups going into this week, from the Tribeca Trade Group watch list that I send out every Sunday night, and it took a little while. It actually breached the 50-day moving average, tested the bottom of its September value area, and their turn. So I did add a starter position in FUTU. Let's see if this can begin to actually trend back up. But here's my support level to trade against, 165.37. Let's see. Do I have anything else on my list that I want to go over? A couple of the financial names, right? So SOFI. This name was raging a couple days ago. I would be looking to get involved in this, maybe if it breaks back to the 20-day moving average. But again, on my list, whenever it's gone down to the 20-day moving average, it's held up really well. So for me, not yet, but I'll definitely be watching this one. And I was really really impressed with Robinhood, which I still own in my trading account as well as in the TTG trend portfolio. Yes, it's a bit overbought today, but hey, still grinding higher, still above that 5-day moving average. I'll leave it there for now. Guys, have a great night, and see you tomorrow.